Greetings, seekers of peace, and welcome to Stillness Unfolded. Imagine an old monk by a riverbank, his robes swaying, the water whispering who's tugging at your stillness right now. That's the riddle we'll unravel today. Long ago, under a banyan tree, the Buddha said, "Your mind is your sanctuary, who you let in shapes its calm." His words ring true as we step into our golden years. But what if those closest to you dim your light? In this video, I'll share 5 ancient tales, 5 souls to release, even kin, shadows stealing serenity you've earned. Packed with wisdom, this journey demands your full attention. Stay till the end to catch it all. What shadow lingers in your garden? We'll find out, starting with a cunning voice unraveling a quiet day. If you're ready to guard your peace, drop a like, subscribe to our circle, and share your thoughts below. Your voice helps Stillness Unfolded bloom with more sacred stories. Let's begin. Part 1. The Weaver of Guilt, the Manipulator. In a village cradled by endless rice fields, where the wind sang through the stalks like a lullaby, lived an elder named Ananda, his heart as wide as the horizon. His hands, weathered by time, wove baskets beneath the sun's golden embrace, each twist of straw a prayer for peace. One afternoon, as the light danced on his work, his niece Lila approached, her eyes shadowed with urgency. "Uncle," she said, voice trembling, "my roof leaks again, rain soaks my bed. Could you mend it?" Ananda, ever gentle, set his basket aside and climbed her rickety ladder, patching the thatch with care. Days later, she returned, her tone softer but insistent. "The chickens starve, Uncle, could you spare a coin?" Without hesitation, he pressed a copper piece into her palm, his smile warm as the dawn. At first, giving filled Ananda with quiet joy, like the first bloom of a lotus. But Lila's visits grew frequent, her pleas winding around his days like creeping vines. "You've always helped me," she'd say, her voice now edged with reproach, "don't abandon me now." Each word stitched guilt into his soul, a heavy thread pulling tighter with every favor. His mornings, once spent listening to the birds, became hers fetching water, mending fences, soothing her endless woes. One evening, drained to his bones, Ananda slumped by a lotus pond, its still waters reflecting a weary face. The Buddha's teaching drifted to him on the breeze: compassion is a gift freely given, not a chain to bind the giver. He saw then how Lila's needs had become a web, not of love, but of convenience. "I've known such weavers of guilt in my own life. A friend once called me at dusk, her voice a tapestry of sorrow, lost work, broken dreams, until my nights became her refuge. I thought it kindness to listen, to help, but kindness should lift both hearts, not hollow one." In Buddhism, we learn that boundaries are gates, not walls, guarding the sanctuary within. The manipulator doesn't crave your ruin, they seek ease, threading guilt to tether you to their will. I learned to pause, to weigh each plea against my peace, and found freedom in a gentle refusal. Ananda, too, found his gate. When Lila next came, her basket of complaints in hand, he met her gaze with calm. "I care for you, Lila," he said, "but my strength is not yours to claim endlessly." She bristled, her lips parting in protest, but he turned back to his weaving, the straw steady in his hands. Days passed, and her visits lessened. Peace returned to him, soft as sunlight piercing a storm's end. Ask yourself, does someone in your life tug at you with strings of duty? The quiet thing revealing their heart isn't their pleas, it's the weight they leave on your shoulders. Later, in the comments, share with me, how do you untangle such threads without losing your compassion? Part 2, The Mirror of Self, the Self-Absorbed. Far across the rolling hills, where the earth kissed the sky, a widow named Sita tended a small shrine, its lamps flickering like stars at dawn. Her hands, lined with years, lit each wick with reverence, a ritual of quiet devotion. Her nephew Ravi often wandered in, his voice a rushing stream of tales, victories won, burdens borne. One morning, as the air carried the scent of jasmine, Sita began to share a memory, a festival of lanterns from her youth, when the village glowed with light and song, a warmth that still lingered in her chest. But before her words could settle, Ravi broke in. That reminds me of my trade last month. The merchant praised my skill. Her story dissolved, swallowed by the mirror he held to himself. Week after week, Sita's flame dimmed. She became a shadow in her own sanctuary, her wisdom buried beneath his endless recounting. She'd speak of the rains, and he'd turn it to his travels. She'd recall a lost friend, and he'd boast of a new ally. One night, under a crescent moon's silver gaze, she sat alone, whispering a sutra to the stars. True connection flows both ways, like rivers meeting the sea. The Buddha taught empathy as a bridge between souls. Without it, we stand isolated, even in company. Sita realized Ravi saw only his reflection, not her light. I've sat with such mirrors too. A colleague once filled hours with his triumphs, books written, praises earned, never pausing to ask of my day. I listened, patient as a monk, but patience shouldn't erase your presence. The self-absorbed don't strike with malice, they lost in their own image, blind to yours. In old age, when every tale you carry is a thread of a lifetime, you deserve ears that hear, eyes that see. I began to nudge back, to claim my space, and found that silence can teach where words fail. Sita, too, sought her bridge. One dusk, as Ravi launched into another saga, she raised a hand. Ravi, she said softly, I'd like to finish my story, it matters to me. He blinked, startled as a deer, but nodded. Her tale unfolded, and slowly, their talks found balance. The lamps in her shrine burned brighter, their glow a testament to her reclaimed voice. Picture a gathering where your words weave with others, where laughter dances between hearts. That's the garden worth tending. Who in your life listens with their soul? Hold that thought, it's a thread we'll weave later. Part 3, The Whisperer of Faults, the Critic. Deep within a bamboo grove, where the stalks swayed like a chorus of monks chanting beneath the sky, an old potter named Kavi shaped clay with hands steady as ancient stone. The earth yielded to his touch, each pot rising from the will a quiet testament to his years, imperfect, perhaps, with edges slightly askew or surfaces roughened by time, yet alive with the spirit of creation. The grove was his sanctuary, the rhythmic hum of his will blending with the rustle of leaves, a harmony he'd cultivated through decades of labor and love. But nearby lingered his sister Meena, her shadow falling across his work like a cloud over the sun. Her eyes, sharp as a falcon's, scanned each vessel, and her tongue cut sharper still. That pot's uneven, she'd say, her voice a needle hidden in silk, or "You're too old to sell these, why bother with such crooked things?" Her words, cloaked as concern, pierced him like nettles buried in soft grass, subtle yet stinging. At first, Covey brushed them aside, but they piled up, a slow weight on his spirit. His pride, once a sturdy wheel turning with purpose, began to wobble, his hands hesitated, tracing the clay with uncertainty, and the joy that once danced in his craft faded like a flame starved of air. One dawn, as mist clung to the earth like a soft robe woven by the night, Covey sat beside his kiln, its fire casting a warm glow across his lined face. The silence of the grove wrapped around him, broken only by the crackle of burning wood. In that stillness, a parable of the Buddha rose in his mind, gentle as a breeze. Words are arrows, they wound only when you grasp them and hold them to your heart. He turned the teaching over like a smooth stone, seeing it anew. Mina's barbs weren't truth, they were her own fears, flung outward to shield her from the fragility she refused to face. Her critiques mirrored her own unrest, not his worth. I've known such whisperers of faults in my own life, too. A relative once shadowed my days, her voice a constant drizzle of judgment, my meals too plain, my dreams too lofty, my very breath somehow wrong. Her words seeded doubt, sprouting weeds in a garden I tended with care. But I came to see their thorns were hers alone, not mine to carry, and that realization was a quiet liberation. Critics like Mina thrive on flaws, not to lift you toward the sun but to steady themselves against their own trembling ground. They wield judgment as a crutch, leaning on your perceived imperfections to prop up their fragile sense of control. In old age, when your scars are badges of battles won and your choices a tapestry woven from a lifetime's thread, no one has the right to unravel them with careless hands. Covey understood this truth as the mist began to lift, revealing the grove in soft light. When Mina next hovered, her voice slicing through the morning air, another flawed pot, Covey, when will you learn? He met her gaze with a smile, calm as the clay beneath his fingers. I'm content with my pots, Mina, he said, his tone steady, and with the life that shapes them. Her words fell like dry leaves, brittle and unheeded, scattering in the wind as though they'd never been spoken. He turned back to his wheel, its rhythm unbroken, the clay rising anew under his touch, a silent hymn to his resilience. Your peace is a garden no one's judgment can claim. Picture it now, do whispers creep through its stillness, pricking at your roots? The subtle thing unveiling their intent isn't their tone, it's the doubt they sow, quiet as a seed in fertile soil. Let it drift like mist, dissolving in the light of your own truth. And tell me in the comments below, how do you silence such voices without letting anger take root? I'd love to hear how you tend your own grove, keeping it free of thorns. Part 4, The Bearer of Burdens, the Irresponsible. By a mountain stream, where water carved its patient path through unyielding stone, an elder named Tara spun wool, her spindle twirling like a dancer caught in a rhythm of calm. The air was crisp, scented with pine and earth, and her days flowed as steadily as the current, serene, unbroken, a quiet hymn to the life she'd woven through years of toil. Her fingers, gnarled yet deft, worked the fleece into threads of soft gold, each strand a promise of warmth for the winter ahead. But her son Jiro moved through life like a storm over the peaks, his steps heavy with debts unpaid and promises shattered into dust. One afternoon, as the stream glittered under a fading sun, he stumbled to her side, his eyes wide with desperation. "Mother, just this once," he pleaded, voice cracking like dry wood, "a coin to settle the merchant. He'll take my tools if I don't pay." Tara, her love as deep as the valley cradling their home, paused her spindle and handed over the earnings of her wool, her heart aching to see him steady. Yet once was a fleeting vow. Days later, he returned, his shadow longer, his pleas sharper. Money for rice, for tools, for mistakes she hadn't sown, each request forging a chain that bound her hands to his chaos. Her spindle grew still, her wool dwindling as she sold it to mend the cracks in his life. The stream's song, once a comfort, now echoed her weariness, its endless flow a mirror to the burdens she carried. One twilight, as the water murmured its ancient tale beneath a sky streaked with amber, Tara sat with her spindle idle, its silence louder than the current. A teaching of the Buddha rose within her, clear as the mountain air. Each soul turns its own wheel of karma, no other can bear its load or spin its thread. She saw then that Jiro's burdens were his to carry, lessons woven into his path, not hers to unravel. "I've borne such weights myself," a cousin once leaned on me for years, his crises a tide that rose without end. He'd call with tales of lost coins and broken plans, and I'd give, thinking it mercy. But compassion isn't rescue, it's a balance, a dance that honors both the giver and the one who receives. I learned to step back, to let the river of his life find its own course, trusting that lessons bloom in their own time, not mine. Tara, too, found her footing on this truth. When Jiro next came, his voice trembling with the familiar need, "Mother, the lender waits, just one more coin." She looked into his eyes, her gaze firm as the granite cliffs above. "Jiro," she said, her words steady as the stream's flow, "I love you as the earth loves the rain, but your path is yours to walk, not mine to pave." He faltered, his hands clenching as if to grasp the aid she withheld, then turned away, his steps uncertain but his own at last. She watched him go, a pang in her chest softening into peace. Her wool stayed in her hands, the spindle resuming its dance, and her days flowed once more, restored like the stream that carved its way through stone, unburdened by what it could not carry. Who leans on you beyond reason, their weight bending your branches? The quiet thing revealing their struggle isn't their pleas, it's the shadow they cast over your light. Picture your stream, does it run clear, or do others muddy its flow? Share your burden in the comments below, let's lighten it together, threading our stories into a tapestry of strength. Part 5, The Silent Taker, the Ungrateful. In a valley cradled by green hills, where the earth sighed with the rustle of leaves and the dawn painted the slopes in hues of emerald, an elder named Priya baked bread, her hearth a quiet gift offered to the winds. The scent of rising dough drifted through the air, warm and golden, a call that drew all children with eager hands, travelers weary from the road, kin bound by blood. Her fingers, dusted with flour and softened by years, kneaded each loaf with a love as steady as the seasons, each crust a small miracle born of fire and care. Among those who came was her brother Vimal, his steps heavy with habit, his presence as familiar as the hills themselves. He ate heartily, tearing into the bread with relish, yet his lips offered no thanks, no word of gratitude, no nod of appreciation. At times, a mutter escaped him, low and sharp, "Too dry, or the crusts too hard, before silence fell again, thick as fog rolling down the valley. Priya's joy, once a flame that danced with every loaf she shared, flickered under that weight. Her flower, once a treasure, felt wasted on a void that swallowed without savoring. One starry night, as the sky spilled its light across the hills like a scattering of jewels, Priya sat by her oven, the embers casting shadows on her weathered face. The warmth of the hearth pressed against her, yet a chill lingered in her heart. She traced the lines of her hands, hands that had given so much, and a teaching of the Buddha rose within her, soft as a whisper on the wind. Giving is a river's flow, its joy lies in the act, not in the echo it seeks. He spoke of detachment, of offering kindness not for praise or repayment, but for the purity of its own current. She saw then that Vimal's silence wasn't her burden, his ingratitude was a shadow he cast, not a measure of her light. I've fed silent takers too, in my own days. A friend once sat at my table, savoring meals I'd crafted with care, only to leave with a shrug or a faint complaint, never a thank you, never a spark returned. Their quiet theft dimmed the warmth I'd poured out, until I learned that in old age, when time is a precious thread, your gifts deserve to kindle something in return, even if only a fleeting glow. Priya turned this truth over like dough beneath her palms. She began to shift her giving, baking less for Vimal's unseeing hands, her flowers spared for those who met her generosity with grace. One morning, she carried a warm loaf to a widow who lived alone at the valley's edge, a woman whose eyes crinkled with every bite, whose soft "this is a blessing" rekindled Priya's flame. The widow's smiles were thanks enough, small sparks that fed the hearth within her. Vimal came still, but found smaller portions, his mutters unanswered as Priya tended her oven with renewed purpose. Her hearth roared anew, its fire a song of joy unbound by expectation, a testament to the earth she chose to nurture. Where does your kindness take root? Does it bloom or wither in the hands that receive it? The subtle thing unveiling their heart isn't their silence, it's the emptiness they leave behind when your gift departs. Picture your own valley, who warms it with their gratitude? Tend that soil, for it's yours to nurture with care. And share with me in the comments, where have you planted your kindness lately, and what grew from it? Let's weave our harvests together. The monk by the riverbank opens his eyes, voices fading into silence. Ananda, Siddha, Kavi, Tara, and Priya wove peace from shadows, heeding the Buddha's whisper, peace lies within, guard it. Your golden years are yours to shape, release the weaver, mirror, whisperer, bearer, and taker. Embrace those who see your light. What step will you take today? Share it in the comments. I am eager for your tale. This video brims with lessons, and you've caught them all by staying. Thank you. If it stirred you, light a like, subscribe to Stillness Unfolded, and drop your thoughts below. Your support crafts more stories of grace. This isn't a fleeting scroll, it's a deep dive you've walked fully. Now, as the river flows, who will you welcome into your peace? Let's build a circle of stillness together, one tale at a time. Until next time, may your garden thrive, unshaded and free.